So why did Israel win the first round of rulings in the International Court of Justice ICJ on South Africa's application for emergency provisional measures under the Genocide Convention? It is simple. In its application and the hearings before the ICJ on the 11th and 12th of January 2024, South Africa asked, should the court find there is on the face of it a genocide taking place or a risk of genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza, the court is requested to indicate the following measures. A, the state of Israel shall immediately suspend its military operations in and against Gaza. In other words, a provisional measure akin to an immediate ceasefire. But instead, the ICJ majority ruling made no mention of words in its provisional measures in its order against Israel in the operable terms that South Africa requested, specifically immediate suspend its military operations. In other words, there was no ceasefire ordered by the ICJ, and instead, the ICJ said this in its wording of its provisional measures. Israel must, in accordance with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, in relation to Palestinians in Gaza, take all measures within its powers to prevent a genocide. That is, A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. But to be clear, the majority ICJ ruling on the provisional measures did not order Israel to stop immediately its military actions in Gaza. The closest the majority ICJ ruling got to calling a halt to military actions in Gaza by Israel was when the court said this. The court further considers that Israel must ensure with immediate effect that its military forces do not commit any of the above described acts. But again, there was no clear, unequivocal order from the ICJ to instruct Israel to stop its military actions in Gaza, which is what South Africa's principal provisional measure, as mentioned, was about and what pro-Palestinian supporters have longed for. And yes, of course, many may argue that even if ICJ had ordered Israel to cease its military actions with immediate effect, one, there would be no prospect of it ever being enforced given the support Israel enjoys from USA. Two, it takes two sides to a conflict to stop a war. And three, some may argue, although some of the families of the hostages may disagree, that this would have left the hostages in the hands of armed groups with no prospect of their return without military action. South Africa and the supporters of Palestinians can claim some victories in the ICJ preliminary ruling. For example, the ICJ majority ruling accepted the following. 1. The court has on the face of it jurisdiction to hear this genocide case. 2. The case cannot on the face of it at this stage be removed or thrown out by the court as per the Israeli wishes. 3. South Africa has on the face of it standing to bring the case of violations of the Genocide Convention against Israel, even though they are not a direct victims of claim of genocide. 4. The Palestinians appear to have a right as a protected group from genocide. 5. On the face of it, and before any final ruling, it is plausible that there has been acts and there are acts of genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. And 6, without urgent emergency provisional measures in place to protect the Palestinian people, there is a risk of irreparable prejudice to them. And South Africa and the supporters of Palestinians can also claim, as a result of the majority ruling of the ICJ, a number of very important provisional measures were ordered, which include an order to ensure access to urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance, and that Israel must submit a report to the court on all measures taken to give effect to this order within 1 month. But in my opinion, while it might be highly embarrassing for Israel for the case now to move to the next hearing to finally determine issues like jurisdiction and the merits of the case, and it's just my opinion, Israel won the first round at the ICJ. For the pro-Palestinian supporters, the ICJ came up short, and that is likely to have consequences politically, militarily, and in a humanitarian way. Feel free to comment, follow, like, and share.